Sabah al khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed Al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English-language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode. Good morning, Yusuf. Good morning, Nasser. Good morning, listeners.
Good morning, gentlemen, and the three of us are back.
Today I think we're going to speak a little bit about Gaza, and in particular about Mohammed El Halabi, who has been in prison now for 1,228 days for stealing $30 million after the Reverend Tim Costello said, but we only ever gave him 7.5.
Allegedly.
So what, this has been going for 3 years and we've heard nothing, and now...
Oh, look, there's been a little bit in the newspapers along the journey, particularly early on when the Israelis and the Zionists and the Israel lobby here in Australia has been very ferocious in its efforts to defund any aid to Palestine. In the first instance, it's worked through making aid organisations through ACFID, be it Action Abroad or World Vision, etc., to stop a feeder, to stop sending money, but also for the Australian government to stop sending money to UNRWA. And they've been very efficacious at that in the United States, where we don't want to call him president. What do we want to call him? The idiot in charge of the United States, Donald Trump, has defunded UNRWA and caused significant challenges to Palestinians.
And also, from there we will talk about how Israel is putting more layers of pain and injustice to the medical sector of Palestinians, and particularly Gaza, and how they punish the victims of their siege, the ones who go to West Bank for treatment. We also have maybe a bit of an update on the Palestinians in Lebanon, and in the bigger picture now with the Lebanese large-scale protests, and a little bit more. Is there any other topics?
And then we have to give the updates of everything coming up for PAL-vember.
Yes.
Which is a very exciting month for Palestinians in Melbourne. Now, Nasser, you've got something on colonialism.
You know, Rob, we talk about colonialism in the sense as Australians, living on indigenous land that was stolen off their Aboriginals, and settler colonialism is what's happened here, as has happened in Palestine. But I was reading it in a book recently, and I made some notes, and I can't remember the book, so forgive me.
That's handy.
But there's colonialism comes in three models. Model A is just steal resources, and that model is British India. Go in there, massive violence, take the resources. We're bringing civilization and religion to you, so you should be happy, but in the meantime we'll take the gold, the diamonds, the rubber, etc. Eventually the people get the means to expel. And because there was never enough humans there, the British left, 1948. Then there's the American-Australian model, where you come in and complete or nearly complete a genocide of all the indigenous peoples. There's that level of colonialism. And there's the Israeli...
And also loot the resources.
Of course, yeah, but you're replacing the people. In India, the British just went, they had created the Raj, and they just took the cash and let the people be the people, starved them, killed them, etc. America and Australia, you almost wipe them out completely. What's left, you live in reservations, get them addicted to alcohol. Their life expectancy is reduced compared to the rest of the population. Their incarceration rates are much higher, infant mortality higher. You completely despise them, dispossess them, and ruin them. And then you have the Israeli model, which is kill, ethnically cleanse the land for their sole use. And this is 48-67. And then you have the South African version, which is you're there and you're a minority and you take the resources, but you're not in the British model where you're you leave and just send money away. You're actually there, and then you move the indigenous people into the Bantustans and reservations. And eventually you actually institute apartheid. And then you get Israel of 2019, which is a beautiful mix of all three. We take all the evilness of all three and put them all into one, and you get a new level of colonialism, which is Israeli apartheid settler colonialism. This is trademark Nasser Mashni, 2019.
It's a sad state of affairs that this has been going on for years, and what we do to humans. It's a horrible, horrible thing.
And also to make that legitimate and legalized by bills like the nation-state bill that passed the parliament last year, and to institutionalize and legalize this apartheid and legalize this land theft and genocide and make it look like, it's no longer a bad thing.
Well, then you can, co-opt and coerce and manage relationships across the Western world, and you get the compliant media that, wants to hear one narrative, and that narrative is, white is good, brown, black, Muslim, Judeo-Christian, all those narratives, and suddenly, everybody's a bad guy, Palestinians teach their children to hate. In fact, we want life.
There's so much to be said or reflected on this, but it's an important statement to be made. And one thing is that Israel managed to create a barrier between what is a member of the citizen, or what is a citizen to the state, and what is a part of the nation. So while Palestinians of Israel hold Israeli passports, they will never be part of the nation. They will never be part of the nation because they belong to the wrong ethnic group or religion in that particular framework. They might be citizens, but they will never be part of the or the nation. They don't call it the Jewish nation because by definition you are excluding non-Jews, but they called it the nation, and they excluded non-Jews out of it, and therefore this is, like Nasser said, a mixture or a blend of three ugly facets of colonialism that the Palestinians have to endure taking. So, moving on to Gaza.
Yeah. So next week, Mohammed El Halabi, who is he was the manager of World Vision's programs in Gaza, has so theoretically it's his final court date. He should find out what his sentence is. And just to remind our listeners, it's now been 3.5 years since he was in jail. He had a son, was an infant when he moved in. When he was imprisoned, he was held captive for 52 days, interrogated by the Shin Bet. He's lost hearing in one of his ears. He's had 127 court dates in 3 years and still not had a verdict.
There's no evidence either. There's no.
Well, I mean, the Israelis have got evidence.
Of course.
Yeah, they've got their evidence, and they have accused him of being an agent of Hamas and of funneling millions of dollars into Hamas tunnels and diverting food, steel, etc., from the needy to Hamas. And, I mean, if he is guilty of what they charge him, they should, in fact... this guy is a modern-day prophet because DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, has cleared World Vision because it's World Vision Australia program. World Vision and DFAT both did forensic audits. They spent in the realms of $3 million doing audits of all the monies that they've ever gone through to Gaza, through to Mohammed El Halabi's control. Israel's accused him of siphoning $30 million. So somehow he's turned 7.5 into 30, a factor of 400%. And
well, this is the bombastic part of it at the beginning, wasn't it? Because I know that Tim Costello came out and said that we've never given them anywhere near that amount. Yeah. The total was 7 million.
And what's interesting is that all it takes for Israel to throw an allegation of accusation for our media to pick it up and take it like a fact. And deal with this, deal with it as an undisputed fact, just because Israel has said so.
Well, the whole purpose is to, create and to intimidate international aid organisations from carrying out very legitimate work in Gaza. It's to halt the humanitarian aid. And as we know, Gaza, 2 million people, 365 square kilometres, desperate for world aid, particularly after the three.
Massive hostilities.
So World Vision, for the past 3 and a bit years, has suspended its aid. we were, Australians of Palestine, instrumental in creating an orphan sponsorship program with World Vision that allowed people to choose to sponsor not just any child anywhere, but in fact to choose to sponsor a Palestinian child, boy or girl, in Gaza, East Jerusalem, West Bank, or in the refugee camps in Lebanon. And that program ran for the best part of a year until they decided to pull that specific program, and you can still sponsor a kid. You just can't have we had an actual specific form that was for Palestinians. And my family and I, we sponsored 6 children, and for 3.5 years, they haven't received any of the money. The money has been going to World Vision. They're quarantining it in the hope that one day they'll be able to release it. But just to give our listeners an idea, Mohammed has been in jail for 1,200 days, 3.5 years, that his family is only allowed to visit him once every 2 months. Only 3 relatives are allowed to go and see him. It's a 12-hour trip from Gaza for a half-hour visit, and the visit's conducted through armoured plate glass.
Is this legal?
Well,
I know that they do it over there, it's common practice, but anywhere else in the world
it's against international law.
Once every 2 months.
Israel is defying the logic and defying every law. Yeah. And I want Nasser to finish because I want to reflect on this particular point.
Yeah. So during his 52 days of interrogation by the Shin Bet, 52 days, beating, sleep deprivation, etc., he lost 40% of his hearing. And because the conversations are via a phone link, they're very hard. And Muhammad's youngest son, Ferris, who's 4 years old, has never actually touched hasn't touched his dad since that he can remember, because the last time his dad saw him, he was, only a few months old.
So Israel, the way it deals with the prisoners from Gaza and West Bank is that all of the jails, all of the prisons are in historical Palestine, are in proper Israel. So they are not allowed to do that by international law. So any occupying power, according to international law, cannot transfer prisoners from their country to another country. And allegedly, all of the prisons, whether in Megiddo or all of the infamous prisons that we hear about in Israel, are in Israel. They are not in West Bank nor in Gaza. And therefore, think of the suffering of the members of the families of the prisoners when they want to visit. It's like they have to go through the same procedures of going to a foreign country. Not to mention that these visits are made extremely painful on purpose, so that the pain extends to include not just the prisoner, but his or her family members and friends. And one of the things that I keep discovering as you dig deeper is how Israel is doing more policies to inflict more pain. For example, the court, if you are a prisoner in Negev, which is the south of Palestine, the court is deliberately to the furthest north, so that the journey becomes even longer. And this is done on purpose. So we can talk more about the prisoners later. Yeah. But 3 years in Israeli prison is not just what you might think.
Don't think
Australian prisons when we talk about Israeli prisons.
On that note, and talking about the Machiavellian machinery that is the apparatus of the state terrorism that Israel inflicts upon Palestinians. In 2003, there was an Israeli sociologist, and we're talking about an incremental, slow ethnic cleansing genocide that the Israelis are perpetuating on Zionism in its desire for an ethnically pure Jewish state on historic Palestine is creating. This Israeli sociologist who, in his evolution of his thinking, obviously saying the word genocide with all of the challenges that the Jews have gone through 2 millennia. It's not an easy word for him to come up with. But his name was Baruch Kimmerling, and he invented a word called politicized. And he did this in 2003, before Sharon's disengagement, before the siege. And This is how he defined it. The first is the destruction of the Palestinian public sphere, including its leadership, social and material infrastructure. The second effect is to make everyday life for the Palestinians increasingly unbearable by destroying the private sphere and any possibility of normalcy and stability. All of these conditions are designed to lower Palestinian expectations, crush their resistance, isolate them, make them submit to any arrangement suggested by the Israelis, and eventually cause their voluntary mass immigration from the land.
But you know what? It's not working. It's not working. We are not going anywhere. I know there are waves of economic pressures that now Palestinian youth are considering migrating to improve their economic situation, especially in Gaza. But on a larger scale, the bad news for Zionists is that the first time ever since Nakba, the Palestinian Arabs outnumbered Jews in historical Palestine. That's from the river to the sea. First time since 48 that we outnumbered Jews. And the figures are as follows. The Palestinian Arabs are 6.8 million. The Israeli Jews are 6.6 million. So we are winning by 200,000. That's a very bad news for the Zionists who have been betting on the wrong horse for more than 70 years.
Well, you just got to back humanity, you know.
And that's, having said that, that is not, I don't want to feed into us versus Jews, Arabs versus Jews. No. There is no problem between Arabs and Jews historically. In fact, Jews were protected by Islam or Arabs in Andalus, in North Africa, in Middle East, in several, and they know that. But it's this evil ideology of Zionism that want to do so much damage to both nations, whether Arabs and Jews, for political reasons.
So it's us against them, as far as they're concerned.
And speaking also on Gaza, the siege after 13 years or more has destroyed the medical sector, literally, and made it dysfunctional to a great extent. Not to mention that the hospitals are banned from importing supplies or importing equipments. Or
what sort of supplies are they banned from having?
Including, plaster aid, including bandages, anesthetics.
On top of all of that, because of the frequent power outages and the cost of generating power with a generator, operations get cancelled, or patients are lost on the operating table because suddenly the doctors can't see. They're operating by mobile phone torchlights.
So there's nearly nothing unaffected in the medical sector. So you can expect the patients when they go to the very few hospitals we have in Gaza Strip and find no way or means for treatment, and so the second step is treatment in the West Bank. And now, because Israel is besieging Gaza and is occupying West Bank, so they can control who can join the patient, who can accompany from the family member. And in the last few years, we have so many pieces of evidence that they've been depriving the mother or the father of children to join them for treatment in West Bank. And the story I want to talk about is about maybe a 1-year-old baby from Gaza who was sent to Hebron for treatment, and who Israel deprived his mother from joining him. However, a beautiful lady from Hebron decided to be the mother, the second mother. So her name is Anwar Irfa'iyya. She's 22. She dedicated her life to the care and service of this baby until he returns. And I really want to acknowledge the work of Anwar Irfa'iyya from Hebron, not just this one person, but it's the solidarity that the Israelis will never be able to crush.
And they wouldn't allow the mother to stay there.
They would not allow the mother. And the baby was sent on his own, and of course he felt the loss of his mother very deeply, and somebody has to stand up, and I really want to say thank God for Anwar and people like her. And thank God for the Palestinian solidarity. But I also want you to imagine the evil policies of the occupation. So they first besieged Gaza, they made the sector dysfunctional, and then they deprive the patients and their relatives from having a humane treatment.
It's horrible.
Well, you know, if we talk about that, there's a couple of other stories, Yusuf, and the first one is Khadir al-Saidi. He's a Gazan fisherman. He's been imprisoned previously. The Israelis have, you know, shot up his boat, even though, according to Oslo, he should be able to go to 20 miles, but never been allowed to go past 6. He's been in prison for 14 months. In February this year, the Israeli Navy attacked his boat again, shot him from close range with 15. He got hit 15 times with rubber bullets, shattered his eye sockets. He was detained. One of his eyes was removed. They told him his second eye could be saved, but needed complicated surgery. 4 days later, he was dumped in Gaza. When the Haaretz, the newspaper, questioned the army, saying, "Can we bring him back so that he can get the other eye fixed?" his permit was denied because his injury did not constitute mortal danger. So it's okay for him to go blind.
It's just the eye.
Yeah,
it's just his other eye, because he lost one.
So the stats this year on children from Gaza. And this is in the first 6 months of this year, 56 infants were separated from their parents in hospital. Hiba Swalmi, she's 24. She was pregnant with triplets. Her triplets came 2 months early. So, you know, triplets, even if they went full term, would be very low weight anyway. But having 2 months early, only a 7-month gestation period, and triplets, they were in need of intensive medical treatment. Her permit expired before the kids were okay. So she was sent back to Gaza. Her triplets stayed there. One died 9 days after she left, and the other 2 weeks later. According to doctors at Al-Makasid Hospital, one of the babies could have survived if it had been breastfed. The surviving baby...
Denial breastfeeding.
Yeah.
You know, this is the state.
But an infant needs to have its mother as well. It needs to have its mother.
Correct. So 2 of her children died without her being there. The surviving baby spent months alone, cared for by nurses. And the only way Salwan could see her child was by video phone, when the phones were charged. Only when the story was picked up by Britain's Guardian newspaper did somehow the Israeli authorities relent, and they gave her a permit to go collect her child.
And somehow the survivors of this brutality, when they resist, eventually when they grow up, they are labeled as haters. Why do they hate us? Because we've never done anything wrong to them. So moving on to a regional awakening of Arab, maybe the second wave of Arab Spring. We've seen it at the beginning of this year and towards the end of last year in Sudan. And they managed, after months of protesting peacefully in Khartoum and Durman and other Sudanese cities, that they were able to topple al-Bashir after more than three decades of dictatorship. And then that encouraged the people of Algeria to say no to the fifth renewal of the presidential term of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. And then they managed to create some core change to the electoral system in Algeria, and the Algerian protest is still happening. And then after that, we have seen unexpectedly the Iraqis protesting against 16 years of failure, dysfunctionality, and corruption. It started at the beginning of October, in the areas where the leading ruling political parties are from. So it's the constituency of the ruling party. And I hate to use the terms used in the Western media. It's the Shias or cities that are predominantly Shia that are protesting against their own Shia political parties, particularly Ad-Da'wa and Al-Badr and other. And now, as of the last few days, Lebanon has joined the wave, and they first, I think the story in every country is different, but we don't want to generalize. Now, I think the Lebanese protests were driven by rejection of an extra tax imposed by, or wanted to be imposed by the government on WhatsApp, and that was the spark. And now we're seeing nearly a week after that. Lebanese people in Lebanon and in diaspora. We've seen them here in Melbourne and in Sydney and elsewhere around the world protesting against sectarianism, against corruption, against a system that really paralyzed the country. Now, the big question, where is the Palestinian Lebanese into all that? And the quick and short answer is that they're not part of it, because it's a Lebanese issue. But the early signs of this political or social unrest started in a Palestinian context inside Lebanon, where the labor minister, Camille Abu Sulaiman, issued a ruling, or wanted to pass a law to put more barriers against the Palestinians of Lebanon and to treat them like foreigners, although they were second and third generation Lebanese. And of course that sparked outcry among the Palestinian camps. And of course we've seen this Lebanese large-scale protest 3 months after the Palestinian part of the story. So I don't want to call it as a direct result, but it is not unconnected, if I can say.
I noticed the Lebanese riots so far sort of quite peaceful. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's something that will be sustained, or do you think it'll take a turn?
So from observing the Arabic outlets, some would say that it might turn ugly, especially when the constituency of Hezbollah and Amal and Al-Aoun and other political parties resist the social protest, and it might be another wave of civil unrest. But others will say the army will prevent that. The Lebanese army has made it clear that we will defend the protesters, and I could see good signs, because it would have taken a day or two to see violence if there is an intention to escalate, like what we've seen in Iraq, for example. First day was okay, second day was brutal. In Lebanon, now it's been a week and still peaceful, and I really hope that they're learning from the experience of the 15-year of civil war, that they've tasted the bitterness of civil fighting, and this is in vivid memory. The end of the Lebanese civil war was 1991, so it's not a very long time ago. So I really hope and that they, having seen all the brutalities of the 15 years of civil war, that they're learning.
I hope so.
I think we should, so many of our listeners wouldn't know, Yusuf, about Lebanon's constitution that was written by the French post-World War II, that mandates who should be president, who should be prime minister, and it's by sect. Sadly, Lebanon's democracy isn't based upon a meritocracy. If you're a Sunni, you get to vote for a Sunni candidate that ends up being allowed to be prime minister. Can't be president, and
can't be the speaker of the parliament,
can't be the speaker of the house, etc., etc., etc. So, hopefully, this these protests will be able to destroy this constitution. And because the beautiful thing about Lebanon is just the beautiful mix. Yeah, I mean, you have a situation where the Shia, Hezbollah, were able to throw the Israelis out of Lebanon, and the Maronites, who are a Catholic, a sect of Catholicism, were cheering the Shia on for getting rid of their co-conspirators from the late 70s and early 80s. So, Lebanon is a beautiful place and a wondrous place and a great mix of cultures and religions, and hopefully this protest will see, and the best thing about the protest, as we were speaking about before, Yusuf, off air, is it is not sectarian.
No.
They are just Lebanese, united in their love for Lebanon and a desire to have a representational government.
So they have our voices, and hopefully they will bring about a positive outcome to Lebanon and to all of us. With this, we have come to the end, believe it or not, of our program. 29 minutes.
See you next week.
Thanks, boys. And we should remind our listeners to go to apan.org.au, apan.org.au, to find out details of PAL-vember.
Yes. Until then, have a great time and salam.